Neil, welcome to the Migrant Mentor.
Thanks for having me, Suraj.
Dad's an apology today, but he would have loved to be here. He's known you for years. Speaking of knowing you for years, I've known you for about 9 years. You're a boy from Pune, and ever since I've known you, you've always had this inner confidence about you. Where does that come from?
Yeah, thanks, man. Actually, I haven't really thought about it that way. I used to be a very shy kid growing up. I used to barely talk to any guests that would have come to my house or anything like that. But I think like when I moved to Australia, I was pretty clear in my head that if I move here, I'm going to do something different with my life. And everything I've done ever since, so I moved here in 2016, and everything I've done ever since, it's actually been with that lens in mind that I'm going to do something for myself, something different.
And where did you get that from? Because I know growing up, your dad's in the army. He's the head of farming for the Indian Army.
Yeah.
You know, we both have a similar mentality, right? We love the Navy SEAL mentality of mental strength and resilience and grit. Growing up with an army dad, what was that like? What was that relationship like growing up with someone that's so strict in that sense?
Yeah, actually for a long period of time, like until I was 18, I used to like really respect my dad. I still do, but like I was almost like fearful of him in a way because, you know, he was this director guy, a colonel in the army. He used to, even if I went to his office, I would see how other people would treat him. And it was almost like the Godfather movie. I'll tell you a small story. So I went to his office one time, just visiting randomly, and I literally saw a line of people that were waiting just to like meet him and shake his hands. And I was like, holy shit, this is my dad. And I never saw him from that lens. But at the same time, you know, he was he was very involved in his own work. He was very passionate about what he was doing, and he tried to do a really good job. And, you know, most of sort of my raising actually was coming through my mum and my grandma. So they were the two people that were actually in charge of kind of raising me up. So I feel like that inner confidence was something that my mum instilled in me at a very young age, because they really encouraged me to do all different kinds of activities. So like, you know, from a very early age, I was into music, I was playing keyboards, then I joined karate, then I joined like tabla, the Indian drums, percussion, all that kind of stuff. And then I picked up the guitar. And then, you know, I was always kind of a showman, but a very shy person at the same time. So it was doing all these different things and tying it together was something that I really got from my mum and my grandma. And I think that confidence of you can do anything and learning new skills was something that I developed at a very early age.
Do you think dad being in the army affected you in a negative way? And what I mean by that is obviously, you know, my dad, he's head of the temple. He started Thai organization for startups in Australia. He's a lecturer now, so there's a lot of external respect that people have for him, and everyone always says your dad's an amazing guy, and I feel like I have to live up to that expectation. What was that like for you?
It was actually very similar in a way because, you know, obviously he's so well respected nationally in India. He's this massive connections, you know, like, there's thousands of people that know him. He can just make a phone call anywhere in the country and make anything happen. So, living up to that, I did feel a lot of pressure growing up. And obviously, you know, I was the colonel's son and, you know, like everyone's eyes were on me. So I think like from a very early age, sort of that developed my way of thinking as well, in a way, the way I sort of carried myself and things like that. And then I went on a completely different path when I actually moved out of India. And that was a path of rebellion as a teenager, playing in a rock band and like, you know, like not listening to anyone, anti-authority, all that kind of stuff. So it was a complete opposite thing. But then now when I look back at it, you know, so now I'm 30 years old, I look back at it and I think that, wow, my dad actually taught me so much. He taught me the value of having a good work ethic. He taught me the value of being punctual. And most importantly, the biggest lesson I learned from him is how to be good and kind to other people and always help them out, help people in need and things like that. So, you know, I carry those lessons with me on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I guess he was kind of like your first mentor, if you like. Right?
He was
That you
absolutely.
sometimes clashed with because he's your dad and he told you to clean your room.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I mean, for the first 13 or 14 years, I used to like really, even going to his office, like the way it was all set up, the desk, and, it's like this, like a visual would be like a, Oval Office in the White House for the president. It's like a miniature version of that, but like with all these like trophies, medals, and like files. It was quite intimidating for a young kid to just even go there, and and I barely even spoke, if in those scenarios. So it was a lot of fun. Came with a lot of privileges. Was very lucky, very humbled to grow up with so many privileges as well because of that. And then later in my life, I just sort of had to unlearn all of that and like develop my own identity as a person.
Why didn't you decide to do something in the army or follow in his footsteps?
That's a great question. So I think a secret part of him wanted me to do that. But it was my mum who said, like, whatever you do, don't go into the army because it's a tough life. You have to move from city to city. You get posted out in different areas. It's a physically demanding job. Mentally, it's very demanding, and the impact that has on your family is it's a real thing. So massive respect to all the army people out there, anywhere in the world. It's a tough life. It's a soldier's life. So I do respect that a lot. But I just didn't want to do that, and I kind of do my own thing, Yeah.
And doing your own thing, you're in marketing and social media right now.
Yep.
We'll touch on that in a sec. So you did your undergrad in India, then you came...
Correction, I did my undergrad in New Zealand.
New Zealand. Okay, so you did your undergrad in New Zealand. What made you... Well, first of all, what made you want to go overseas or abroad from India when you had such a great privilege like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was my mum who had the vision of like, my dad came from a very small village and he was able to make it on a national level where, like he literally studied in a municipal school in a local regional language. From that to becoming a director of an esteemed organization, that was his achievement. And my mum actually had this vision for me when I was young that I would, do that on an international level. So then, they sort of shipped me to New Zealand when I was 18 years old, coming out of high school straight. Like I had no experience, nothing. But my uncle, who then became my second mentor, was actually in New Zealand. And I was living with him for a couple of years, and he has a very successful IT business in New Zealand. And he was able to guide me through my undergrad in that time frame.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously we met when we were doing Rapley.
Yeah.
How did we meet? It was Dad, right, that introduced us?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those surreal moments. Meeting your dad, meeting, Dr. Kimji was actually a moment that I attribute that really changed the trajectory of my life. He was the first lecturer in my first ever course at Sydney Uni. So I was studying Master of IT there. And, I found him to be very relatable. He was funny. His lectures were entertaining. I think he was teaching a course on entrepreneurship or something like that. And I was just like, man, I got to go and talk to this person because his stories are just so inspiring. And I looked up that, you mentioned TIE tie. He was wearing a tie pin, I still remember. And I was like, what is this TIE thing? So I looked it up and I was like, man, I have to talk to this person.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I reached out to him after class and he's like, I can't talk to you now. Meet me at the end of the semester. So I was like, okay, I waited for literally 10 weeks from that moment till the semester finished. And I was like, Dr. Kimji, you asked me to see you after the semester. Here I am. Look, I'm in marketing. I'm really hungry. I want to succeed. So, if you know anyone that's looking for marketing help, I'll work for free. And then he's like, actually... I know this company. I can't make any promises, but go and interview for them. And then he passed on my details to Fiona Aaron, and we set up an interview. And this was a time when I was moving I went to India on summer break between semesters.
Yeah, that's right.
And I got a call from Fiona that I was successful in the interview, and I couldn't believe it. And, so I was like, whatever happens, I don't care. I'm going to cut my holidays short, but I'm going to come and work. And it was an unpaid internship through this incubator program. I mean, we did get some shares in the company in the end, but I came back, and I think I still remember the date. It was 7th of January, and we had a coffee together, you and me.
Remember the date?
I do remember the date.
I don't remember the date.
Yeah.
I
So
just remember meeting a kid who I could get free work from. He seemed like a hustler, so I'd get some free work.
absolutely.
For 3 months.
Man, I was just so thrilled to have an opportunity in a new country. And I was like just so excited about working in a startup. So I was like, wow, startups are cool. I'm studying IT. And then, I just want to know how all this stuff works. So imagine if I hadn't sort of reached out to Kimji after class in one of in one of those courses. I wouldn't have met Fiona. I wouldn't have met you, and we wouldn't be sitting here today. So, I mean, I'm truly grateful to him for making that intro, because that intro literally changed the trajectory of my life.
I think there's something to be said about reaching out like that, right? Most people, you went out of your comfort zone to
Yeah.
reach out to dad in the first place.
Yeah.
How many people do you know that are actively seeking that help, seeking those opportunities? I think it's a personality trait. I don't know if it's if something happens or whatever happens, like, do you think it's a personality trait to be able to be that type of person?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a personality trait. It's a bit of luck. It's a bit of timing, cosmic timing, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, so I do encourage, people who move here to actually go out of their comfort zone, because it's not everything. Like meeting your dad was one of the things. One of the other things was I actually met Steve Wozniak as well, the co-founder of Apple. It was in a very weird way like that as well. So I went to one of his events, and even though the time had finished for me to ask questions, but I still kept persisting. So we had a bit of a chit chat, and I built a bit of a rapport. So I don't know, in those early days of me coming to Australia, I was just so clear that I just have to do it. And I was just like operating at a very intentional level, which, again, I'm grateful for, because I had some great people that I was listening to at the time through audiobooks, podcasts. I attended so many like seminars and stuff like that in the early days, which we attended one together as well. Yeah. So that kind of stuff, I think I literally brainwashed myself, and I was like, okay, this is my one shot. I will do anything to make it possible.
Do you think that's a migrant trait? For someone that's going overseas and they have to get a leg up, right? Because you don't know anyone here.
Exactly.
Do you think it's a migrant trait? Do you think it's a cultural Indian trait? Where do you think that comes from?
Yeah, it is a migrant trait. I was just talking to my Uber driver on the way here, and he was like, the guy was like, he was working blue collar jobs just to feed his family for 20 plus years that he's been here. And that's a sacrifice like migrants make, especially like in their formative years when they come here, so that the next generation can benefit from it. I do think migrants have that work ethic, which is unbelievable, but also, it comes from coming from a place where, it's a bit of everything, the resources are scarce, so you have to utilize them very well, but also then not taking no for an answer, because that's what migrants do, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Spoken about the inspiration, the positivity about, meeting dad or your career so far. What were some of the not so great events? At Rapley, it's a startup. It was up and down all the time.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what that felt like.
Yeah, that was like my first experience working in a startup. It was unreal. I mean, I was just so happy to be there. I didn't even think about anything else, to be very honest. Ups and downs, obviously, like, I feel like it just like changed my personality in a way where like that became like the formative years of my career, even though I had worked before. But I actually attribute Rapley to starting my real career, even though I had 3 years work experience before. So lots of ups and downs, startups, we're trying to like hustle, doing all these growth tactics and strategies, trying to grow. And then, I graduated, and then I actually managed to find another job after that, even though like Rapley was kind enough to offer me a full-time role, but then I had to go out into the real outside world and figure out the world for myself.
And obviously, to date, I'm still the best manager you had. I have to.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like, to be honest with you, here's some off the script stuff. We just gotta get you into
nothing scripted. Nothing scripted here.
Yeah, that's true. HR, HR people listening to this, they're gonna call you in on it. But
I was HR.
Yeah, you were everything, right?
Yeah, I was everything back then.
Yeah, it was so much fun. Like, that I don't think I've ever got that level of team camaraderie before. The 4 or 5 of us, 6 of us that were there, and the way we used to operate and how close we were like, it was almost like we were friends first, but we worked our asses off, and then we partied our asses off as well.
We've had some fun times.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, again, it was like, I don't think I've ever had that since that time. So I do miss that level of camaraderie, because we were in, war together on a daily basis. Yeah. So.
And you've always had this very open-minded mentality. Ever since I've known you, you've always worked really hard. We both went to Tony Robbins together. You've done Wim Hof. You did. I remember you did this. Was it a 24-hour backpack or boot camp challenge that you did?
Yeah.
You've always done things outside your comfort zone.
Yep.
How do you think that Tony Robbins event of both of us walking on coal, high-fiving each other, hugging each other with 6,000 other people, what did that experience mixed with career at Rapley teach you?
That's a really good question. I think like getting rid of the limiting beliefs that we put on ourselves, that was the biggest learning from that and Rapley. So that actually taught me that, wait a second, we've all got this ceiling that we put on our heads. That's not the truth. That's just a lie that we tell, or a story that we tell ourselves. We can do anything that we want. If we truly want it, we can do it. So Rapley taught me that maybe one day I can actually own a business myself. And the Tony Robbins thing taught me that, get rid of all these limiting stories in my head and just break the ceiling and just go hard. Yeah. So those are a couple of things.
I think that honestly, that was the key takeaway for me.
Yeah.
Besides taking those cold showers that you meant in the hotel room, which I absolutely hate.
Yeah. I still do them, but
I think you're right. I think it's something to said about that limiting belief. And one of my favorite quotes is by Henry Ford, and I'm actually getting a tattoo of it.
Oh, wow.
In the next few weeks.
No way.
It's whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Wow.
I think it's so simple but so powerful. And it's around that limiting belief, right? If you think you can't do something in the first place, you're never going to be able to do it.
That's true.
I know you're a big believer in quotes. Is there anything that you really hold closely to?
Yeah, there's a few quotes that I really like, just reflecting on that particular quote and tying it all together. I think one of the things Tony Robbins said was proximity is power. So proximity meaning how close you are, who you surround yourself with. That quote really sort of resonates with me even to this day, because who you surround yourself with, you're the average of 5 people. Most people have heard that quote as well. So that kind of stuff is actually unreal, because if you surround yourself with people that are doing better than you, then you just become an average of those people. So even if you don't know those people in person, you can do that by listening to audiobooks or podcasts and really like almost brainwashing yourself for success. And that's something that, proximity is power is one of my favorite quotes from that event.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, the amount of audiobooks that we used to listen to.
Exactly.
We kind of had our own little book club, didn't we?
We did.
We shared inside stories. And
absolutely.
And we grew together during that period.
Yeah.
You spoke about proximity is power. Absolutely love that. And I know Alan Aaron, shout out to Alan, wherever you are. He's obviously shaped a lot of what you and I have both done together.
Absolutely.
Him and Fiona are pretty much family friends nowadays, and we'd love to get them on the podcast soon.
100%.
Tell us about that relationship that you've had with him.
Yeah, so Alan
Who is he to you?
Alan, I would say, is, then became my mentor through this process. He became my business mentor and also life mentor, So, I attribute so much of what I am today to Alan. Kimji was my first believer. He was the first guy that said, okay, wait, this kid's got something. Let me help him out. And then the second person who actually stepped up and decided to partner with me was Alan. So I met Alan as he was one of the investors in Rapley and also one of the board members. And, we just went out for a coffee. So it was through this Rough Diamonds Ideas Incubator program where, it's like a incubator program that he and Fiona had started. And Alan was kind of helping me out as a young intern to figure out what my life and work purpose was. But without making it so obvious, it was just, for Alan, it was just a coffee chat. Yeah. But that one chat, I remember we met near his place in the eastern suburbs, and that one chat, he made me write down what is the kind of work that I do, and he literally asked me to forward that email to 10 people and challenge me on why I shouldn't do that. And if I was able to defend myself through that process, then I had something tangible that I should focus on for the rest of my life. So that was growth marketing, digital marketing, marketing in general, that came out of that process. Because I was like, jack of all trades. I used to do a bit of everything. But that conversation really focused me onto that. And, so big shout out to Alan, who helped me through my formative years. And, we always stayed in touch, even after Rapley. We used to grab, a coffee or a lunch here and there when I went on and worked in a agency world. So it was actually amazing what those conversations, the impact they had on me.
I think also it's lucky because you and I both found our life purpose very early on, right? And it sounds like through that journey with knowing Alan, you knew kind of a blueprint of where you wanted to go.
Yeah, I always knew that I wanted to do something different. But I think Alan and those meetings really helped me formulate that into something more tangible. So he knew I had all this raw energy. He literally helped me convert that into some real specific skills that I could, be paid for and was good at, and almost like an ikigai model. So that was very cool.
Well, obviously for me, you'll always do things for all this.
Oh, I got your back.
Yeah,
always.
I know you do. That's why we're such good friends. Talk to me about after Rapley. You finished up Rapley, and I know you had a lot of ups and downs. You worked full time, and then COVID happened. Tell us about that journey. You also got injured during COVID, and I know it was a pretty bad injury.
Yeah.
How did you get through that bad period? What was that bad period for everyone that's listening? Because I'm sure there's other people that have gone through something similar.
Yeah, so I think one of the darkest periods in my life was that period. So what happened was I got offered a job in an agency. I worked there for about 18 months to 2 years, and I was going through my, experience. Lots of great things happened while I was there. So I got to work with a lot of Australian SMEs, so small to medium-sized enterprises, and I really refined my marketing skills there, managed budgets, for upwards to $1 million and things like that for different clients. But what happened after that was I had gone to India for a vacation, just a summer sort of break during Christmas, and I met with a life-changing injury while I was there. So I cracked my ankle, broke my tibia, I think it was, and also my arm. So I was literally in a wheelchair for 6 months. I had to go through surgery, which was horrible because I was just there on holiday. And this is before work from home was a thing. So when I did come back to Australia, I was still on a wheelchair. my partner, shout out to Maisie, who really, really looked after me in that period. Because I was literally incapable of doing anything. I couldn't even wheel the wheelchair because my arm was broken. So that was a very dark period. I was in constant pain, 24 hours a day, all that kind of stuff. So I had to make a very tough decision, whether to continue working in that agency, a job that I was good at, or to take the leap of faith and focus on my recovery and then hope that, I can bounce back from it. So I made that tough call. And even though I made that tough call, what happened was the pandemic hit the next day of my last day of work at that place. So I don't know why I'm remembering the dates, but I think it's the bulletproof.
The dates.
The bulletproof coffee.
Yeah.
So 13th March was the day I resigned from that company. Like that was like my last day after the notice period. The following Monday was when the lockdown started. So the job market was completely wiped out, and I had taken time off to recover, but I knew that I had to get back into the job game before I lose any of the other stuff. So I was, there I was. By that time, I think I had moved from a wheelchair to crutches, but I was still in a lot of pain. I had to teach myself how to walk again. The doctor had said I would never be able to walk the same way again, which was very discouraging. And, but I was like, nah, I'm going to prove him wrong. I don't know. I had that belief in myself. So yeah, long story short, after that, what happened was I came out strong of that experience. I kept going, kept persevering, but then it led to nothing. My savings were drying up from the job. I was literally even struggling to pay rent.
So you quit the job.
Yep.
And then what were you doing in that period where you didn't have enough one?
I couldn't do anything. I was literally applying for 50 jobs a day, but the job market had closed because the pandemic had just hit.
So you didn't have a job at that?
And I was literally trying to survive. Maisie, my partner, she had just joined a new role as well. So, we were trying to get by with whatever we could. And we'd even considered applying for a hardship benefit that the government was giving to rental sort of tenants at the time who couldn't afford to pay their rent. So it had gotten that bad. So I didn't even want to, I know if I reached out to people, of course they would help, but I didn't want... I was too proud to accept that help. I was like, no, I'm going to change this. So, it's not going to be permanent. So what I did was I took some time off. I really sort of recalculated. I was like, okay, let's change the strategy. Let's not try to worry about jobs. And then that's when I started thinking as an entrepreneur of some creative solutions and landed my first client.
Didn't you... When the doctor said, I'm giggling to myself because when the doctor said you probably won't walk properly again, didn't you run a half marathon or a 50K marathon afterwards?
Yeah, so I made it a point to run a half marathon every year just to prove him wrong. So this is like my third or fourth one. I just did one last month actually. So I just ran 21 Ks just to prove him wrong. Yeah. I don't know. It's just one of those things. Yeah. So, I mean, again, it's just a mental thing, right? You don't want to take, even if I know he's a medical specialist and all that, but most of it is mental. If you accept that it's not going to work for you, it's not going to work for you. If you believe that, no, I'm going to be fine, you just push through it, you'll be fine.
And I think that, again, comes to that limiting belief.
Yeah. Yeah.
If someone says you can't do something, I think you and I both have that mentality.
Absolutely. 100%.
When someone says you can't do something, you have
to do it.
Underdog story in your own head. Like, nah, I gotta win here, right?
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, since then, he said I couldn't walk, but I've done 3 or 4 half marathons. And I trained boxing for 2 years and I do jiu-jitsu now. So, F you to the doctor.
Is that, sorry for all the aunties and uncles that are listening to this as well. So I guess during that hard time when you didn't have money, was there ever a thought in your head that I need to go back to India and be in that comfort zone again?
Yeah, actually my parents, my relatives had encouraged me to come back. They didn't even want me to come back to Australia. But, through that time, I was very determined for whatever reason. I think it was because I was listening to all these books and podcasts and stuff like that. So I was like, no, I'm going to make it here. I came on a wheelchair and I had a translation exam, which would give me some points towards my permanent residency in Australia.
Yes.
So I literally gave that exam in a wheelchair.
Wow.
They let me go first, which was kind of nice. So I didn't have to wait in queue.
Wheelchair privileges.
Exactly. But yeah, I aced that exam and I was working full time while preparing for the exam. So it was a translation exam from Hindi to English or English to Hindi, both ways. Yeah. So that gave me some extra points towards residency. I didn't have a residency. All I knew was that, I'm going to make it one day. And, my partner was here at the time and, we figured it out.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
You've started your own company now.
Yes.
You've got 2 or 3 companies now, like all of us, trying multiple things.
Entrepreneurs,
right?
yes.
Tell me about OneTap. What inspired you to start that company?
So
what is OneTap for everyone else?
So OneTap is an AI-powered mobile app that allows small and medium-sized businesses to run ads in a very simple, easy-to-use way, and they can run ads on platforms like Google, Facebook, Instagram, and more to come. So I built that app from a real need. So when I was working in an agency, I found that all these business owners, they were having a real difficult time trying to run and manage their ad campaigns. Small business owners are too busy already as it is, and they don't have the capacity or the time to become marketing experts on top of their day job, which is running the business. So I wanted to give them a tool to empower them. So it was a marketing agency in your pocket, in your mobile phone. So you could literally run ads on it, do tests, see what's working, what's not working, very quickly. And AI was just around the corner as well. So I'm talking 2022, 23. That's when we combined the app with AI, and it really sort of tried to solve a real need for these business owners, and they would, without the need to become a marketer, they could run ads finally. Because ad platforms at the moment, they're very clunky. Everyone just thinks that, I'll run a sponsored post on Instagram, put $50 behind them, and target a few people. It's not going to do much for you. You actually need a proper marketing strategy, a good website URL. So OneTap, what it does is it just simplifies this whole process, and you can find your correct audience. You can run ads on Google. So that's another thing that's really hard for a lot of business people to do, is run Google ads. This is just demystifying the whole process. Yeah, so I started OneTap. The idea started in about 2020, and we sort of went official with it in 2021 or about sort of mid 2021 with Alan. Yeah.
And I know you had a lot of challenges developing that app. You had CTO resign. You had a lot of issues with the core development. What was that journey like? Because I know it's really hard to find great developers, number one. Number two, I always say a good CTO or a CIO that I've seen is a product owner. They're a product manager. What happened there? What exactly happened when you were building those apps or that app?
Yeah, so it was quite a difficult journey. It was my first time actually recruiting people.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what to look for. So anyone that was interested, I would just hire them straight away because I didn't know anything better. We would go through the interview processes, and I would look at the CV. I was like, wow, this guy's so high level. He's gonna be great. But the challenge with people that we were getting were that they were very experienced people who wanted to dabble in the startup world, but they were missing the hustle culture that's required for you to become a tech CEO in a startup. You need that bit of tenacity, that grit, that resilience that we're talking about, and you need to get your hands dirty. So every CTO, we've had a couple, 2 or 3 maybe, and every CTO taught me a lesson of what not to do when I hired the next CTO. So the first one was an amazing guy, but the challenge was he was very high level and didn't want to get his hands dirty.
Actually code.
Yeah, exactly. So we got him on, then, it didn't work out. And then he got a job, and then he went and started working for that job. So that was the first one. The second one was actually a friend, which taught me don't hire your friends. Because again, you can't have that level of candid relationships, especially like he was a friend but not a close friend, but like at the same time it was like a bit awkward when I used to give him feedback on his working style again. So first lesson was, don't hire people that are like really senior, because they probably are not that motivated because they've achieved whatever they needed to achieve in their lives. So unless you're in a big scale up, if you want people to then manage those other people, but in an early stage startup, no. Then the second one taught me, don't hire your friends. And the third one, now we're very lucky. We got this amazing guy, JB. Shout out to JB. He's a Sydney-based developer. He's a great developer, and he's also a great person. And he plays guitar, so bonus points to him as well. And so culturally, it's a much better fit. Because he's a developer first, and then a manager. So I feel like the first tips to hire a good CTO, they have to be early stage CTO. They have to be good at coding. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. Yeah, otherwise it's just not going to work.
I think, what do you look for now when you are hiring staff?
Grit. Grit and skills. If you have like both, then, it doesn't matter. Like you'll figure it out. You want to work with people that inspire you, motivate you. They keep you on your toes. You want to be great around them. You don't want to let them down. Those kind of people, it's all these intangibles that are hard to measure, but those are the things that actually, a good question, right? Like, for example, what would Rapley hire? Like that's kind of like everyone that worked at Rapley now is doing so well in their own careers. And there's a reason for that. It's like a team. So, even if I can get some of those attributes from that becomes really fun.
I think for me personally, when I'm hiring, it's three things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, experience is great, but I think, right now, especially for migrants, having the experience on a piece of paper, if you're applying for Amazon, if you're applying for Uber as a job, they get thousands of applications. How
Absolutely.
can it be different?
Yep.
It's not on the resume.
No.
For me, the three things I look for is hustle and open-mindedness.
100%.
Like you said, with the CTOs, if they're a little bit older, they might not be as open-minded to getting their hands dirty potentially.
Exactly.
Right. So tell me, I know you're a content strategy specialist nowadays. You've done a lot of different things.
Yep.
You've got, I think something that you were telling me earlier, that you've got over 6 million views on social media across all platforms.
Yeah, for my clients. Yeah. So, that goes back to the story of how I met my first client. And since then, we're still working together 4 years later. We just closed a crowdfunding campaign, and they raised about $250,000 on Virtual. And,
that was recently?
2 days ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So what product do they have?
So it's in the guitar space. It's a very niche product. It's a digital whammy bar. So a whammy bar is something that you put on a guitar. It modulates the pitch of a device. And this inventor, Peter, shout out to Peter Walker, he's an Australian legend. He's worked with bands like Cold Chisel, Air Supply, David Bowie, The Police, etc. Like, very cool guy. And he developed this amazing product called the Virtual Jeff Pro. And the moment I was introduced to him, we had like that instant connection. Yeah. And despite, and this is so funny, like despite of, like he's in that more experienced bucket, I will put him there because he's been around since the 70s. But the reality is the level of grit, determination, open-mindedness that he has, it's more than I've seen in a lot of people.
Rubs off on you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was like, man, whatever happens, I need to work with this guy. He's got a great product. And I knew it was a great product because before I even took him on as a client, I did my homework. I saw the reviews or the Facebook messages or the comments that he was getting on the page saying, Peter, when are you releasing the product? When are you There was like 30 or 40 sort of things just asking him, when are you releasing it? This is before he's even released the product. And just because he announced it in one of the music conventions and people took notice of it, he even won like Best in Show for showing the prototype and Australia Good Design Award. So that was really amazing to see that he had this amazing product, no competitors, blue ocean strategy. Even now, like there's barely any competitors 4 years later because it's just such a unique niche device. So I knew I could jump in and add value. So coming back to your original question, 6 million views, how that happened was by combining two elements that were very unrelated. So if you think about why ideas catch on, or if you think about why things go viral, you'll understand that it's usually the unexpected stuff. So if you look at, Charlie Bit My Finger or any original like OG viral videos, the reason that they're viral is because it's combining elements of surprise with two different domains, if that makes sense. So
dive a little bit deep into that.
Okay. So I'll give you the example of these guys directly, right? So it's a guitar product. I had this idea. I saw this amazing YouTuber that was reviewing guitar effects, but on harp. So she's a harp player based in Long Island, New York, and she was doing like guitar effects, but on harp, and that was a very unique concept. So she had gained a bit of a cult following. I was like, why don't we send her one of our units?
Right.
Harp player, guitar effect, uncanny crossover, viral idea.
So it's influencing
marketing for a very different demographic.
Yeah.
So it's because she's a harp player and we had a guitar effect, and that made it interesting, that crossover. So most ideas that catch on have two characteristics. One, it has to have an interesting crossover. You look at like Mr. Beast, he was recently in Sydney, and the reason why he's so famous because he has all these interesting crossovers. Like he's giving away cars, which is like a surprising element that brings people joy. And the second part, it's shareable. How shareable can that be? Like, for example, you want to share ideas with your friends because you want to be at the forefront of being like, hey, look, I found it first kind of thing. So those are the two elements that you'll find in like 80 to 90% of viral videos. That's why they catch on so fast. They're shareable and there's an uncanny crossover. And that's what we were able to achieve. And that video got us, 6 million views.
6 million views, and that's what helped you raise was it 250,000?
Yeah, and that it got, picked up by news media, it got picked up by the actual old school harp conventions. They even invited us to America. We actually went to America to attend a harp convention. Yep. It's one of the most interesting demographic that you got like, 8-year-old grandmas quietly like wheeling their harps on a little trolley. It was the best thing.
Wow, that's awesome. I think you touched on something that you said there was an instant connection with
Peter.
With Peter. I think there's something about that because again, if you look at your friends, when there's an instant connection with friends.
Yep.
Right? Whether they're the right type. Same thing with mentors. It's mentors at first sight. Even with dating, if we look at dating, sometimes you just know, even through, these days people are using dating apps, online dating. You match with someone and the conversation flows. It's just really nice, banter, depth of conversation. Do you think that as you have grown older, you have less time for people you're not compatible with, or you've just got a better instinct of who you want to spend your energy?
That's a really good question. I think about this a lot, and I have come to the conclusion that I don't want to spend time with people that, so I've developed a whole framework for this, right? So
framework. Give us framework.
Okay.
People want to hear it.
So it's a there's a very general framework. I usually put people in 4 buckets, right? So if you drew like a little table and, you see like usually the people that you want to hang out with are people that have the best interest of you at their hearts and whether they agree or disagree with you, right? Both are okay. So if someone has your best interest at heart and they agree with you, you want to have those people around. I call them nurturers. then if you have people like that don't agree with you but have the best interest at heart, they're keepers, because you want those people around. They challenge your viewpoints. People like Alan, your mentors, like Kimji, all these kind of people, you want them. They're not going to agree on everything you say, but they will challenge you to expand your viewpoint.
Yeah.
Then the third one is people that don't have the best interest of you at heart, and they agree, but they're still agreeing with what you're saying. You want to watch out for these people. I call them manipulators, because they're not showing their true intent. They just agree on the surface, but then they're just going to do whatever they want to do. And then the last bucket is people that don't agree with you, but also don't have the best intentions at heart for, they don't want you to succeed. Those are drainers. Those people you just want to stay away from completely. And then there's a fifth type, which is indifferent people who just simply don't care.
Yeah.
So that's fine. There's always going to be those. But if in a professional setting, usually there's like people will fall into one of these 4 buckets, and that's where you want to like really pay attention where they fall, and you want to keep the keepers and the nurturers around, and just get rid of the manipulators and the drainers.
Reminds me of a friend. His name's Nikhil. We'll eventually get him on the podcast. So growing up with Nikhil, every idea that I had for a startup was, no, it won't work because of this, or this. So a little bit more conservative approach.
Yeah.
And growing up, I'm like, man, can you just agree with me? Like, stop going against me.
Yeah.
You know what? I wouldn't have achieved what I have without him.
Absolutely.
This podcast, I denied whether I should do this podcast. I said, podcast market is saturated, but we've got a great story to tell. He was just like, just do it. Just record your first one. Stop worrying. Stop doing this. You thought about doing this for 6 months, but now look at us, 5 episodes in, people are loving what we're doing, So again, there's those people that give you value in your lives. And at that time, you're like, why is he not agreeing? Why is he butting heads? Why can't he just be supportive and be there for me? But that new perspective of that little bit of negativity, or that devil's advocate, that's the keeper. Really helps you, right? It shapes the idea or the concept.
Absolutely. That's a keeper. Nikhil is a keeper. Yeah. So you want to keep him around.
Yeah, don't tell him that though. Don't tell him he's a keeper. He'll get a big head knowing Nikhil. I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, your ability to always try new things. The Tony Robbins, the Wim Hofs, the cold showers, which I still can't do. It's a very spiritual aspect of our persona. True. Both you and I. Tell us a little bit more about that. How has that shaped what you do on a daily basis? I know you meditate. Are you still doing that as well?
Yeah, so absolutely. Like, I feel it's all about having a connection with yourself, with others. Doing different things allows me to have that connection, but also helps me have a beginner's mindset. I love to be humbled, keeps my ego in check. For example, I just recently started doing jiu-jitsu for 2 months. It's been only 2 months. I got like kids, that are like beating me up, kicking my ass. And I'm really happy and grateful that I put myself through that, because that teaches me who I am. So now it's jiu-jitsu. In the future, it's going to be something else. I always like to go through that beginner's mindset, but then tying that all together, I feel it's a way to connect with yourself, because that's where you know who you are, what you are. And also it's a way to connect with other people, because you're forming a community. You meet like people who also want to get better, and through that process, you all grow together. So in a way, it's a very spiritual thing, because it talks about one of the key concepts of spirituality to me, which is connection. It helps you connect with yourself, with others. It helps you stay grounded. So yeah, this all sort of ties back into spirituality somehow.
Have you always been spiritual?
I haven't, but my mum has always been spiritual, and she kind of, encouraged me to follow my own spiritual path, whatever I wanted to do. I've done some cool things in the spiritual realm as well, like a 10-day silent meditation.
Yeah, I remember when you did that. I remember, and I was one of the naysayers. Like, the amount Neil talks, there's no way he can do a 10-day silent. What was that like? Let's go into that. What was the silent retreat for 10 days where you're literally no talking?
It was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. Being silent for 10 days, it's very difficult because you're not allowed, like in that practice, it's called Vipassana. It's one of the best things that I ever did as well, by the way. It's free. It's only I recommend it to everybody. And you start your day at 4:30 a.m. You're meditating about 10 to 12 hours a day. And it's phenomenal because they teach you how to build up your meditation practice from zero. And every day I was there, I was like, I need to quit. But I was like,
I remember texting you every day and I was like, hey, are you coming home yet? Are you coming home
exactly.
Yet?
So, it was...
You've always had that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was like, every day I told myself, one more day. And before you know it, 10 days pass. But if you ask me to do that now, I think I'm going to really struggle with it as well. But, I do practice occasionally. I'll do my meditation. I'll go out on walks. I'll connect with nature. I'll do some grounding, like go into the water or, like all that kind of simple stuff just to be connected with yourself and nature. I think that helps you really slow down. I think it's all about slowing down.
I agree.
Yeah. So, even like most of my hobbies, like I listen to, records. So I've actually got a record player. So it's not Spotify where you have instant access to music. If you want to find a song on the record, you literally have to place the needle at the right time. So again, it's all about slowing down, and that actually helps you enjoy life and have some moments that you can savor.
What has growing up in India with your dad, coming to Australia, going through these career highs and lows, what are the 3 lessons, and the spiritual side of things, what are the 3 lessons that you've learned that you can share with others?
Absolutely. So the first one obviously being don't limit yourself just because you've come from another country. That doesn't mean you don't have anything to offer. You actually have a lot to offer. So go out of the comfort zone. Try to find people that are amazing. I was very lucky that I reached out to, Kimji, Alan, Peter, all these amazing people. It was because I put myself... And Siraj, off the mic. All these amazing people that I wouldn't have met otherwise, and I've learned so much from. So yeah, don't be afraid to don't put a ceiling. Don't tell yourself a story saying like it's too hard or this or that. Yeah, of course it's hard, but like how you perceive that is very important. Number 2 is be very careful where and who you spend your time with. Your time is a very precious resource. So again, going back to proximity is power. You want to spend time with really people that are doing much, much better than you. If you're already the smartest person in the room, you need to change. Yeah, exactly. You have to change your room. So highly, highly recommend, like, be very particular about your time. Every minute, it's not coming back. Every minute gone, it's a minute gone. You're never getting it back. So, be very meticulous. Even social interactions and things like that, you have to really make sure you spending with the right people that are filling you up, not draining you. Just stay away from drama, all that kind of stuff. And finally, about entrepreneurship itself, things are actually going to take a lot longer than what you expect. This is number 2 on the time horizon as well. Like, they're going to take a lot longer. Like, for example, I started my startup. I thought I was going to be done in 6 months.
Yep. All did.
Yeah, exactly. And here we are 4 years later. Yeah. And, now finally I've come to the realization that, I really have to enjoy the process. And I do enjoy the process. It's the creating of the stuff that I enjoy more than the outcomes itself. So yeah, I think like whatever you think, like any project, whether it's a creative project, you think it's going to take like 6 months, multiply that with at least 5. That's just a general rule of thumb. It's going to take 5 times longer than you think, and it's going to take 5 times the more effort than you think. So that's kind of like, yeah, those are the top 3 I can think of.
Yeah. And I know we always talk about books and audiobooks that we listen to, and we share these stories. For our listeners, what are your 2 book recommendations?
One of them is actually one that you turned me on to. It's The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. This book tells you that if you're an entrepreneur, you don't want to work in the business, you want to work on the business. What that means is, we spend time as entrepreneurs spending on like spending a lot of time on menial tasks that actually don't result in the main outputs. So there's two parts of this. So one's the 80-20, which is you want to focus like 20% of your time that on activities that will bring you like 80% of the results. Focus on the big things. Don't worry about the macro. And the most important thing is set systems. So even if like, say you have 3 or 4 staff, one of them leaves, that's fine. You just have them already documented what they're doing on a daily basis. So when the next person, procedure.
Standardizing procedure.
Absolutely.
Creating like the typical McDonald's. Every McDonald's runs efficiently as possible.
Absolutely.
You mean like that, yeah?
Exactly. That's it. So those are the two. So 80-20 and, working on the business, not in the business, standardizing procedures and steps like that. The second book I highly recommend is Principles by Ray Dalio. That deals with both life and work, but the framework that he gives in that book. So Ray Dalio, for those of you who don't know, is one of the most famous hedge fund investors of all time. Like, I don't think he's ever lost money in the stock market, or it's something ridiculous like that. He's a gazillionaire. During the last phase of his career, he actually wanted to give back, and that's why he wrote that book. And it's a pretty, chunky read. It took me like 3 times to get through it. But I think I was ready.
Big book.
Yeah, it's a big book. So it talks about life and work. So, principles, how you develop your own principles. To develop your own principles, you have to actually go through what's called a hero's journey. So you actually have to put yourself in a situation where you will have the most likelihood of learning something. And then when you do that, you're inevitably going to fail. And if you keep going, you're going to come out on top, and then you have your own gem, which is your own principle. Imagine doing that for the rest of your life. So you come out with so many principles that you can utilize in your day-to-day life. So that's basically principles. And then he's given you how he built a very successful culture for his organization as well.
Yeah, I heard his culture's quite strong in his business.
Absolutely.
So, Neil, what is next for Neil? I know you've got a bunch of projects that you're working on.
Mm-hmm.
What's next, and what's the future hold for Neil?
Yeah, so, I think I'm really grateful to my short-lived corporate career, because it taught me so much about Australian businesses, and my whole perspective and my whole thing is now about helping Australian businesses do better marketing. So with that in mind, I'm launching my own marketing agency called 24/8. That's going to change how Australians do business. It's a very unique way of, it's not like any other agency where you take a retainer fee and, you set it and forget it. We're actually building systems from the ground up with the business owners, everything from crafting the perfect sales copy, having a sales letter, to creating an irresistible offer, and then packaging that up with email marketing, driving traffic, and all the automations that's actually going to turn visitors into customers. So we're taking care of that whole thing. And I don't see many agencies doing that. So I found that to be a gap. There's over 5,000 agencies in Australia.
Yeah, I was going to say it's quite a competitive market. And
Absolutely.
Based on what you're saying, a lot of these agencies do what you're saying. So what's different about what you're doing?
Yeah, that's right. So, again, like with everything, there's always the 80-20. You can, it's 20% of the agencies that are actually doing really good work. The challenge is, I've spoken to, over 100 business owners in the last 5 years, and they all say the same thing. This agency burnt me, that agency burnt me. I spent $10,000 on ads, but I never got any results. So I really want to change that. And I'm going to change that by also taking the risk with the business owner, because there is a component as a success model where we only accept fees if we can actually generate that level of business for you.
Okay.
So that's scalable for you and also for us.
Yeah.
And very few people are doing that here.
Just really quickly, explain that model, because that sounds very interesting.
Yeah, so how that would work is, say, Suraj, you come to me, you are a professional service. Let's say you have a law practice, and I'm like, okay, great. So I'm going to build your landing page. I'm going to create a great offer for that. I'm going to write all the copy. I'm going to run all the ads and the marketing. But every lead you get, you're going to pay me for that lead, a successful lead that you close.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. So I'm not giving you upfront money, but you're making money when you generate something.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So there's a return on investment. You're getting a clip of the return on investment.
That's right.
Well, Neil, good luck. I know you're a massive hustler, and so I know it's going to do great things. What was the agency called?
24/8. And also,
I didn't even mean to plug that.
Yeah, the agency's called 24/8. And if I could just, leave the listeners and the viewers with two other things. The other things I'm also doing I've started doing my own social media content lately, and that's to really encourage migrants to step outside their comfort zone. So I'm creating based on my own learnings. If you liked what you heard in this kind of podcast, so I'm sort of combining all the learnings about marketing, entrepreneurship, personal development from all these years that I've been here, and putting them into an easy to understand and digestible form onto social media. So you can look at Neil on Growth online. So I'm available on all channels. You can find me there. And also, we're going to launch One Tap 2.0, an amazing app that's going to change how small businesses do their advertising soon as well.
Awesome, Neil. It has been an absolute pleasure to have my former intern into a CEO or his own company now as well. I know Dad would have loved to be here, but Dad's actually in the Philippines wrangling up some more amazing international mentors as well. So,
phenomenal.
Neil, thanks so much for being a part of the Migrant Mentor.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Happy to do it again.